What's going on, guys? I'm Tyler, and I'm here to let you know that Ronnie'S is no perfect movie. And Ronnie'S is actually a documentary about British saxophone player Ronnie Scott, who in 1959 co founded Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club with his best friend Pete King, and the two of them created arguably one of the most popular jazz clubs in the world, despite suffering so many personal and financial setbacks. And when I found out that my local art house feeder was going to virtually stream a documentary about jazz, I was instantly hooked. And I got even more excited when I found out we were going to see some archive footage of performers like Nina Simone, Van Morrison, Chet Baker, Sonny Rollins, among so many other talented individuals. And while seeing them, who are internationally famous musicians, play in such a small and cluttered club for no real reason other than appreciation for the craft, was truly awesome and investing to watch. The real meat of the story, for me anyways, was learning how difficult it was to run this type of business, because when you just look at footage of the performances and the amount of popularity within that club, where it is constantly packed night after night, there are lineups outside, you would swear that they would be raking in the cash. But no, the two of them were not businessmen. So they made a lot of really dumb and stupid mistakes, especially giving out food and drinks on the house, because the two of them didn't honestly care about making a profit. They just wanted to create a club where they could play whatever music sounded great to them, compared to other jazz club owners who really didn't give a shit about the music they were playing so long as it matched up with the music of the times. Yeah, even back then, jazz was a hard sell for audiences, which I really don't understand. And things were so desperate that they actually accepted legitimate financial support from a gangster known as Italian Albert Dimes, one of the few people who actually paid for his food and drinks, even if it was offered on the house. Dude actually had appreciation for the two of them as businessmen, oddly enough, and he even gave them a bottle of champagne to crack open once they were finally out of debt. Long story short, that bottle was collecting dust for a decade, but in every interview with the two of them, they flat out say if we would do it all over again and make the exact same mistakes, they would, because they had a ton of fun. Ronnie Scott was not really known as a musician purely, and they even prove it with clips of a quiz show where all four contestants cannot correctly guess what kind of instrument he played. He was mostly well known for bringing international musicians to stardom, and he had a strategy that he created even back when he was just a performer. He used to play for a dance band on a ferry that would go from the UK to the US. So, in the few days when they were docked in New York, he would go to clubs, he would meet American bebop musicians like Charlie Parker, and he would establish connections that would serve him later on in the future. So, whenever the British invasion happened and you had performers like the Beatles, the Stones, the Sex Pistols going over to the America to achieve success, there were other performers, jazz performers like Zoot Sims and Oscar Peterson, who flew over to England and performed at Ronnie's. They would get an audience, and the club would get this accessible and popularity driven image because you had British and American performers, among many others, who just had so much energy and enthusiasm and were competing with basically themselves, trying to give as best of a performance as they possibly can. And the amount of appreciation that everyone in this movie has, that you can visibly see through the performances and just by listening to their voices in every interview that's recorded, you can't really feel anything but respect and compassion for these guys, because even though they didn't make that much off of it, they had a hell of a time. Now, when it comes to creating a directorial style for this movie, writer and director Oliver Murray makes the wise decision to not make it like a TV documentary. He doesn't cut back from people sitting down in a chair talking about the experience and then showing it through archive footage. He actually blends the footage and the interviewee's voice together to kind of match up with different stories. He'll either use still photographs that are filmed in widescreen, or he'll use these 4x3 full screen home movies of the 60s and 90s of just the most mundane activities to daily life to try and give it that nostalgic feel to it. And it really helps, especially with the musical performances. It was insane. Whenever they would talk about the popularity and enthusiasm of the club's early days, you would get to see people like Buddy Rich, and yes, that really is his name, who drummed a mile a second. He would give Miles Teller and Whiplash a run for his money. Same with Oscar Peterson playing the piano and seeing so much sweat go down his head and he was smiling no matter how much you could tell that he definitely couldn't see, but dude was improvising as often as he could with the piano. It honestly didn't matter. And then during the more somber and serious moments when Ronnie was having a lot of personal crises and experiencing a lot of depression that I don't want to get into, because if I talk about those moments for even a second, it would spoil the emotional heart of the movie. But when we learn about Ronnie's personal setbacks, they would be interspliced with performances of people like Van Morrison or Nina Simone, who also struggled with mental health a lot. And seeing her in particular perform alongside these sad stories and sing in such a sad and soft tone, it makes the emotional facts just hit so much harder. And the only real problem that I have with Ronnie's as a documentary is that the first 20 minutes suffer a lot in regards to the pacing. It felt like they had to focus on his childhood and how it motivated him to become a musician when those didn't really have the most interesting facts. It felt like you really had to wait to get to the heart of the story, which was learning about his friendship with Pete King and other musicians and what inspired him to create a club and be the MC, so much less a performer, despite the fact that it would lead to a personal crisis in regards to his image and reputation and how other people saw him. In fact, in the first 20 minutes, you hear so many interviewees saying, I thought I knew him this way, and then one other person would say this about him. No one truly knew Ronnie Scott, and it is a cliched thing to hear from a documentary, but it's so identifiable when you talk about just any person that you know in real life. And if I have interested you in any way, if you do want to support as many theaters as possible, I would highly recommend going to princesscinemas.com and definitely giving it a chance. Even if you don't live in Canada, there's a good chance that you'll be able to screen it. It has really good performances. It does a really good job at capturing the spirit of the decade through the combination of interviewee voices and beautiful cinematography and archive footage. Whatever they salvaged, it was totally worth it. And it was a beautiful love letter to jazz music. More than we need right now. And for all of those reasons, I'm going to give Ronnie's a 4 out of 5. Guys, thanks as always for watching. Let me know in the comments down below if you have seen Ronnie's and what you thought of it. And also let me know, what do you think of my brand new background? It's actually nice to have a background for a change. In any case, be sure to let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe. And be sure to check out my other videos at Sharp Edge Cinematics. Take care.